So if I'm going through my bag right now, starting at the top end, I've got the, flip it down here, ST200Z. I want more of a straight ball flight, something that's going to be really stable. This club has been fantastic for me so far. Ventus Black, which is really good, knocking spin down. Yeah, I'm a new father, which means I'm playing a little bit less golf than I used to. So you can almost see a little bit of that in what I'm playing. My golf clubs now are a little bit more forgiving than they used to be, go a little bit further than they used to be. Lofts are a little bit stronger. I'm still playing to a low handicap, but there's definitely been some evolution in there. I've absolutely been trying to hit the ball farther. I can almost go back to a very specific round, maybe 2.5 years ago, where for 3 straight holes I hit 5-iron into par 4s, and that's you're not going to play good golf
tough.
hitting 5-irons into par 4s.
Yep.
Starting then, I started going to the gym a little bit more, so I'm pretty regular with that, and I got a little bit stronger with my lofts, and I got a little bit hotter with the club faces too. So my clubs have evolved just because of my lifestyle.
I mean, you've got the Ventus in there, which is probably at the moment the most popular shaft on globally. Does exactly what you meant to, what it says on the tin. And yeah, I mean, you just have to look at most golfers at the moment. They've probably got some Ventus. Will come to me, but I got some Ventus in here as well. So
there you go.
It's a great product.
Well, I'm always someone who, if anything with the driver, I could use a little bit more spin, which is funny because I got the Ventus Black, which is the lowest amount of spin on it, but I did go a little bit softer. It's an S as opposed to an X, so it's a little bit softer Ventus Black with a head that I've got a little bit extra loft on too, so I'm able to get the ball up in the air a little bit more, but the shaft kind of cancels out any added spin that would be on there.
Yeah, that's a popular combo because you've kind of got the forgiveness of the shaft and then the loft working together.
Yeah.
We've done that a lot of having a head that's very forgiving and is producing that, but countered with a shaft that's keeping it that way. So the two working together, the cuffs and collars match to try and get that ball flight coming out and then maximizing what you've got.
One of the cool things I feel like has happened, it used to be to get the right launch and the right spin, I almost had to sacrifice forgiveness. And now with kind of this combo, I've been able to do that and maximize forgiveness, which is a little bit different than it used to be. Because this head is super stable, but then this shaft is knocking some spin off. And this head, compared to a couple generations ago, knocks some spin off as well. So it's almost like to maximize distance, you don't have to sacrifice forgiveness anymore.
Absolutely, agreed, yeah.
So another thing that's changed in my bag over the last couple of years, I used to just be driver, fairway, and then long irons. I now have 2 fairways actually. I have a 3-wood and a 5-wood, both STZ, both again, Ventus Black, a little bit heavier. This is the 7. So again, these golf clubs have been amazing. The 3-wood, this is a killer off the tee, and the 5-wood is a killer off the ground. It's almost like that combo has been so good that it really didn't make any sense to carry the hybrids or the long irons I was carrying. For a number of years, I carried, it was the MX700 fairway wood, which a super old one, but it was a 15 degree that I'd opened like 3 degrees. So I was playing like 12, but it spun more than the current fairway wood does. So with that, I was having to play a super strong loft to get the spin rate right. Now with like this STZ, I can get the spin rate with 15 degrees. So it gets up, it spins properly, doesn't balloon, carries much better. I feel like fairway woods have really evolved for the last number of years.
And they do, and I think that to be in the bag, they have to do what you want them to do, because years gone by, you had your 3, which was almost a backup driver. It's come out real hot, coming out really forward. Whereas this generation STZ gets it that way. It's so much nicer.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're right, exactly. To get the spin down before, I had super strong loft.
Yeah.
Now I can play a 15 and even an 18 degree, and they get up so nice, but don't spin so much.
And easy off the turf.
Absolutely. It's interesting if you look at fairway woods over the last couple of years. I mean, growing up, to me, a 5-wood, a better player wouldn't even think of a 5-wood. Like a 5-wood was a golf club that would just go sky high, and if there was any wind whatsoever, it almost had no chance. It would balloon, it would come in too steep. Modern 5-woods are way different than that. Like modern 5-woods can hit penetrating ball flights. You see tour players, you probably see it now with 5-woods, even 7-woods.
7-woods, yeah. Yeah, there's been a few people looking at course setup, what they need to do. As you say, if you can stand there and you look down on loft and you know it's not going to go that way, you've still got some control of getting it forward. 5-wood, 7-wood, sign me up, because it's such an easy club to hit. It goes the distance, it's consistent. It's just a continuation of 3-wood, 5-wood, 7-wood.
It almost feels like the modern hybrid, like it was such a popular club for a long time, And now there have been like other options that have replaced that hybrid. So now it's like you see more driving irons paired with fairway woods as opposed to just hybrids. So after my 5 wood, which is 18 degrees, it's interesting because my lofts don't vary that much because I've got a 19 degree 4 Fli-Hi. So it's only a degree stronger, or sorry, a degree weaker than my 5 wood, but it's shorter, it's heavier, and this is, I mean, it's a true driving iron. I mean, the Mizuno Pro Fli-Hi has been really good because I've always been someone who, when you get too strong a loft on something like this, I struggle to get it in the air because, like I talked about with my driver, I don't spin it enough. So this has been great because, again, paired with a graphite shaft, that hybrid shaft helps kick it up, give it a little bit more spin, and this is really good for off the tee or off the turf. It's funny because you would think, just in my position, I wouldn't have all this lead tape off of it, but the reason I have that is because I'm actually, when you look at my bag a lot of times, I've got a couple little prototype things in here, testing things for the future. So the actual finish on this one is a little bit different than the finish on that one. And the samples we got in were on 4s, and I need 19 degrees. So it's actually a 4 bent a little bit stronger. So I made the head weight work just to make it work for what I was trying to do.
Also, graphite shaft won't help that either.
You're exactly right. Yeah, it is an 80-gram graphite shaft as opposed to, like, 90s or some of the stiffer ones that you see in there that are a little bit heavier. So working my way from the irons, had the Mizuno Pro Fli-Hi in the 4, and then I have a 5 through gap wedge of the Mizuno Pro 225. These have been, I mean, to me, they're like game changers. These are awesome. They go high, they go long, they still spin enough, and the feel is there. So it's interesting because my bag used to go, I had a 4 iron and a 3 iron. Now I just have a 4 iron that's strong and then a 5 iron. So I gained a club to put the 5 wood in. But these have been awesome. And I almost set this around with the new lofts, the CORs, everything like that. I used like 150 yards as my base yardage. And I wanted a club that went exactly 150, and I based the bag around that. So to me, 150 yards is 40 degrees of loft. My 9 iron is set at 40, so I set my 9 as 150, and I work everything from there. When I go down to the wedges, I go 5 degrees each way. And when I go up, I go 4.5 degrees each way that way. So that way I'm kind of like setting a stake in the ground and then working my bag from there.
And that's such an important thing, because too many golfers will say, I hit my 7 iron this far, as opposed to saying, right, I'm gonna backload it the other way and say, right, I want to hit something this far. And that's where building a bag isn't just having X amount of clubs, it's having X amount of clubs that do a job, right?
And that's something cool you can do with a fitter, is instead of just saying, how far do I hit my 8, it's, I want my 8 to go this far.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you can be really confident and comfortable in your yardages. And that's why, like, the first time I got stronger lofted irons, I was a little bit nervous about it because I didn't know how far they were gonna go. But once I kind of started putting some logic behind it and doing some math behind it and figuring out how to put the bag together, now it's awesome. Now it's like I know exactly how far each one goes, and it's because I designed each one to go that way.
Fundamentally, that's such a great way of building a bag. Starting at a point and then flowing off that is, for me, that's the only way to go. It takes away all sorts of chance. You're not just going, I hit my 7 iron this far, let's change. Right. It's like, right, okay, Keith does it right with his wedges. The lofts on them are slightly different because he wants to hit one wedge this far, the next wedge that far, and it's kind of, it's very, very bespoke, but each iron and each club is doing its job. So yeah, I would say whether you're a tour player or whether you're a guy just going to get fit, have that mentality, just see how it goes, because I think you'd be quite surprised.
The interesting thing was what it led to on my wedges, because I was always I played 58, 54, 50, and then 46. So I had 4 degrees apart, but then all of a sudden now I'm connecting to a 40 degree 9 iron. So everything got shifted a little bit. So that 9 at 40, now I've got a 44 degree pitching wedge, which we've got T22s, which you could bend to 40 degrees, but it became a little bit too offset. So that's kind of why I went from, I used to always play the non-set matching pitching wedge. Now I've got the set matching, even to the gap wedge as well, because it's become a little bit stronger, a little bit more of a full swing club. So now I go 44, and then I believe it's 48 degrees on this gap wedge, and then I jump to a 53, 58. So 4 degrees, 4 degrees, 4 degrees, then 5, 5.
Well, wedges are like they should be seen as a continuation of the iron set, right? So you wouldn't go 5, 6, 8, 9. you know, you go, hang on a minute, where's my 7-iron? And that's the thing you should always look at with wedges, is making sure that they're not just a 52, a 56 and a 60. You know, that's a very popular wedge setup, but is that right, and does that flow from where your pitching wedge is? Probably the answer is no. You know, not with the traditional lofts, not with the modern lofts now, getting a little bit stronger, just making sure that iron set and your wedges connect, and then after that, it's making sure it hits the right yardage, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a transition where, again, I've got a 53 degree in here. 53 in my head has always been a gap wedge because I've kind of gone from a 53, or for a while I was playing a 51, and I would connect that to a pitching wedge. The fact that the 9-iron got stronger meant that that connection wasn't there. I had to add another gap wedge. So it's funny, like 53 is almost like a sand now, even though in my head it's always been a gap. So now I have basically almost 2 gap wedges, a one with a G that's set matching and a 53 degree T22. It's interesting with the set matching gap wedge is something that I never thought I would like.
It looks great.
It looks really good, and that's part of like the Mizuno Pro line. It looks really small, it looks really compact, where even for years I didn't even play the pitching wedge from the set. Like I would pull that out and put the T22 in there. But the sets, the short irons have gotten so small, so compact, so thin, it's working now. Like it's worked its way in, and it's been no problem whatsoever. And it feels like so many people are comfortable with their wedge setup, whether it's a 60, 56, 52, or a 58, 58, 54, 50, something like that, that they don't even think, how does that connect to a pitching wedge? And when they buy new irons, they think the pitching wedge is the natural next step. But really, with what lofts do and where they vary within the industry, you got to pay attention to all of that. When I looked at the Mizuno Pro line right off the bat, I instantly jumped to 223, just because I've always played a shallow cavity iron. That's always been the one I've just leaned towards. And I liked 223, but I didn't love 223. There was something about them where I felt like I wasn't quite getting, I don't know, there was something on the longer side, to me in particular, where I wasn't quite agreeing with them. When I got to the 7-iron, 6-iron, 5-iron, then I hit the 225 and the 765, and they were phenomenal. And then I kind of worked my way. It's almost like I added one at a time and got to where I ended up with a full set of them, even though that was never the intention.
So with the irons now being so loft specific, you know, that jump of the bladed player that really likes something compact in your kind of your 7 upwards, each model of the MP, so the 221, 223 and the 225 that you've got here, are so loft specific that you get to the short irons and you go, damn, that's really playable,
right?
You know, and so you can get forgiveness, you can get sleek looks from perhaps a model that on paper is maybe a step away from where you were. So that's where the loft specific of the new stuff comes in, and I love that from a fitting point of view, because it makes it so simple. You don't have to split sets, you don't have to try and do anything anything out of the ordinary. It's all there, you know, and that's probably why you've gone right way through from 4-iron upwards, right? It
almost feels like a trend of like people who think they're in one really are landing in one that's a little bit more forgiving than they thought they were. Like I feel like we've seen it all the time.
And then you see the ball flight and you go, there you go.
It's hard to deny the ball flight, right?
If you're standing there and you love the look of them and you're hitting great shots, look no further.
Right. After I get through the T22 wedges, where, you know, obviously you have the forging, you have that feel, you want that forging to go throughout the bag. So under this head cover, little Nashville themed head cover, I do have the original MCraft #2. I like the black ion. To me, it's just such a cool look, really sleeked out. I kind of have it with some gold paint fills just to match this head cover as well. But to me, this putter has been really, really solid. Great feel to it, good traditional look at address. I mean, it's just that typical, you know, plumber's neck style. To me, this is a phenomenal putter.
Hey, anyone with a very traditional blade putter like that, I would instantly say they're probably quite a good putter, because, you know, a bladed putter is almost having bladed irons. It is a little less forgiving. You have to be a lot more in control of your stroke. You're not going to get away with as much, which isn't a bad thing. You know, your rate of rotation and how you putt is so individual that your putter almost doesn't really say a whole lot about you. It just says, I like that, and sometimes it goes in the hole.
Reeks of a little bit of confidence, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I think the one thing I would say about putters is, unlike the rest of the bag, if you're a bladed player, you're probably going to go with blades the next time around. You know, you're not all of a sudden going to get a guy that's gone 221s and then they've gone into the hot metals.
Right.
You're not going to get that huge disparity in where you're looking at. But with putters, you do. You can go from a blade to a house, you know, quite easily. And so with that logic, then what your putter says about your golf is kind of irrelevant.
Well, it's funny. Some people look at a putter of, I'm going to make my stroke match this putter, as opposed to does the putter match your stroke?
There you go.
And it's funny, you see a lot of people, you're right, go back and forth between a blade and a sort of mallet, which really those two putters deserve very different strokes to perform properly. So it's all about what's working better for you. So, and I knew that when I went to the number 5, that needed to be a little bit straighter stroke, less rotation. And it just wasn't quite as comfortable for me. So again, to me, it's all about, you know, it all comes down to fitting, which is what you're so great at, is understanding the fitting side of the world. What's going to fit your stroke better? Because I would always tend towards find that equipment versus trying to make something work for you.
Absolutely agreed, yeah. Okay, so if I didn't know Chris and I was just looking purely at his golf bag, well, you'd say you're a good golfer, you know your stuff, but then aside from that, when you discuss how Chris sees his own bag, he understands it so well, and that's where the two worlds collide, and that's where every golfer should be able to look at his golf bag and say, yeah, that's there because of this. And that's when I look at that, you go, okay, when you start looking at your gap wedge, when you look at the connection with the wedges, the fact that you've got 53, not just gone, yep, give me a 54 or a 56, you know, you've got 53, which is in there for a reason. And yeah, as long as that conversation is had, then that's a great looking bag.